If you're unaware of the video game scene, I mean, you should know if you clicked on this video, then you must know that the game industry was booming with experimental titles during all of the 2000s. This was back when companies were like keen on dropping wads of cash for developers to simply do as they please. With this, we saw a lot of bad titles. And with that, we got so many unforgettable titles that plague games today, trying to replicate that magic that can never be replicated. Since it's spooky season, of course, we must focus on horror. The PS2 was home to some of the most notable titles, whether good or bad, still timeless. I mean, we're talking absolute bangers here, like Silent Hill 2, Fatal Frame, Siren, Kuon, and Cold Fear. As I mentioned before, a lot of these horror titles were experimental, so we'd probably never get titles like these again, with major companies putting their money in AAA titles instead. Indie developers still strive to capture that campy horror, and as of right now, only few have been able to achieve that. November 19th, 2006 gave us a brand new family-oriented console made by Nintendo, the Wii. I mentioned family-oriented to signify the reason why we didn't get that many horror games on the Wii. If children weren't getting them, adults had to. Except adults wouldn't have to worry for long, because guess what released in November of 2006 too? The PS3. While the Wii was way cheaper, adult gamers were more likely to invest in a PS3 than a Wii, after the immense success of the PS2. The Wii would go on to sell more consoles, but that's no surprise. It's Nintendo. In return, the Wii didn't receive a lot of horror games, many to sit on shelves and be forgotten the year later. To refresh your memory, these are some horror games that you probably forgot were on the Wii, or even existed in this case. Well, of course, I have to mention something everyone should be familiar with here. Ports. Unfortunately, a lot of the horror games on the Wii are ports. It's no surprise we got Resident Evil 0, 1, and 4. The original GameCube exclusives. RE0 and 1 work well on the Wii. Given the controls for the Wii being separate, RE's tank controls made this game easier to play, as far as even being able to play the game with only one control. To this day, I don't understand how you can enjoy a game like Call of Duty Black Ops on the Wii. It's just not meant to be on that console. Both games feature appreciable graphics, gameplay, and two bangers you should teach your kids to play. As we move to the topic of RE4, many people actually claim that RE4 on the Wii is the definitive way to play. The GameCube and PS2 had you play with RE4's tank controls. As a person who's so used to that, playing RE4 on the Wii feels like I'm playing an entirely brand new game. That's because of the Wii's IR, its motion sensor. The free motion on the Wii remote allows you to aim easier and really switch up the gameplay. Some people might love or hate this. I think RE4 is already hard. I couldn't imagine trying to speedrun it with a damn nunchuck. On the topic of ports, the original Obscure for the PS2 and Xbox did not receive a port for the Wii. It was a co-op horror game that also featured an RE-esque style, with monsters and still camera angles. What we did get was a sequel, Obscure: The Aftermath. A very silly game that many people have reprimanded for being bad, even though it's an awesome co-op that doesn't take itself seriously.
I hope there'll be some cute guys there.
Right. What about me then?
You're not a guy, Kenny. You're a friend.
No comment.
It has 3D views and somewhat loses the tank controls, with a few still angles thrown in. While the PS2 conveniently has both games on its platform, this game is way easier and more enjoyable to play on the Wii, with its gyroscope and IR features. It's definitely not like RE4 though. When a game comes out on two different consoles at the same time, is it really considered a port? Well, in this case, I guess the definitive version would be considered number 1. Since we're skipping Alone in the Dark Inferno because nobody cares, let's talk about Manhunt 2. As we all know, Manhunt was most popular on the PS2, inevitably making Manhunt 2 preferable to play on that same console. While the Wii had arguably better graphics, Nintendo issued a censorship which made almost all of the brutality aspect blurred out. Definitely a bummer to us gamers with killer instincts. In this case, some argued that the Wii's gyroscope mechanics didn't do much for the gameplay, preferring the DualShock controller instead. Ouch for the Wii. Now, there's something even more shocking. A game where your objective is killing people in prison originally had an AO rating, standing for adult only. This is higher than an M for mature rating. And this game was ported on the Wii? A damn family console? Lastly, the game ported because of RE4's success. 2009's Dead Rising Chop Till You Drop. While this is a port, there were a lot of changes made, hence the name change too. This allowed the game to have a bigger compatibility with the Wii's controls and make it a completely new title. With these new RE4 controls, it wouldn't go on to replicate or deliver what the original Dead Rising was all about. This is just one of many cases of ports not living up to their original titles. Unfortunately, it's something that's still just as common as it was before. It's no surprise that Capcom would change up the game on the Wii after the success of RE4. I mean, how could they not? And whether the game had mixed reviews for its changed gameplay, I still think that the game is pretty fun. Aha, so we've made it into the games that are exclusive to the Wii. Are you guys happy? Yes? No? Maybe so? And yes, some of these games might have gotten ports later down the line, but that's not their fault. We all just smile and nod. Well, if you guys are ready, look no further than Cursed Mountain. Released in 2009, this title was developed by Deep Silver, the same people responsible for the Dead Island series. This game reminds me of those movies that you loved when you were younger, then you go to watch them again and realize they're literal shit. Guess what? It actually still had a little spark to it. I haven't played this game in almost 10 years, so revisiting this game gave me nothing but pure nostalgia. If you're looking for a PS2 style, janky, experimental, then this is for you. Cursed Mountain has a pretty simple plot. Kill Ghost in a mountain. Eric Simmons, the character you play as, must find resources and solve mini puzzles to take down Ghost. While the atmosphere does shine bright in the game, I do feel that it gets a little repetitive at times. The control scheme not helping that point either. There is a lot of reading in this game, so if you love lore, you'll get plenty of material. The enemy battles are relatively easy, and one might argue that the mechanics are basic. With a lot of senseless wandering, I would say try it out for fun. It's a silly little gem to pass the time if you like ghost and rock climbing. The next game is a really scary title called Goosebumps Horrorland. I'm kidding. But that game is also a banger, you should definitely check it out. The next game is Silent Hill Shattered Memories. This game is so much better on the Wii. Memories releasing on the Wii in 2009, then later on the PS2 in 2010. It was very random as so many new consoles were already out. It would have made sense for them to release it on the 360 or PS3. Now you might know why Shattered Memories is so hard to find on the PS2. With this in mind, Memories was made for the Wii, and the Wii motions were a pretty critical aspect to its gameplay. The PS2 couldn't deliver what the Wii gave us, resulting in extremely janky and dropped frame rates. A controversial part of Memories is whether or not it's a reimagining of the original Silent Hill or it's its own title. While the game does use characters and locations from the original, the gameplay is different. So are the enemies, how the characters act, and even the plot for that matter. So whether you want to call it a spin-off or retelling is really up to you. In terms of the game itself, if you don't have super high standards, like minimal enemy fights, and love the SH universe, this game won't hurt to try. There is a lot of replayability with its different endings, and I'd take it any day over SH Origins, so go for it. Next on our list is Resident Evil, Umbrella, and Darkside Chronicles. Umbrella was released in 2007, following Darkside in 2009. Both of these games aren't everyone's cup of tea, because they're rail shooters. The first-person action arcade games. How comical is it that the Silent Hill arcade game came out in 2007 as well? Imagine being two big companies responsible for recently released iconic titles, Resident Evil 4 and Silent Hill 4, then deciding the next big thing is rail shooters. You have to chuckle a little. Needless to say, I loved these games growing up. and that's because I'm a big Resident Evil fan. Umbrella Chronicles featured scenarios including an RE3 retelling, a continuation of the RE1 remake showing Wesker coming to life again for global domination, and a retelling of RE0. On the other hand, Darkside featured a new story with Leon and Krauser, which, if you're unaware, RE4 expected us to know the relationship between the two without any previous information. So this patch really helped that relationship. The game also had an RE2 and Code Veronica retelling. You see, for the time, these games were very much a service. We got high quality scenes many fans wish they had from RE2, 3, and CVX. These were definitely cheap ways to experience classics that should be played on their own, of course, but nonetheless hopefully inspired players to pick up the originals on GameCube or the Wii ports. What mainly drew the audience to these games was the feature of co-op. While you could play multiple different characters in previous games, the series would have to wait until 2009 to get a standalone entry, Resident Evil 5, to play a full RE game together. While these games were simply ones to pass the time and keep the series in conversation, I think it really helped push the idea of RE being fun with a friend. Whether that was bad for the series is totally subjective. Speaking of rail shooters, of course, I can't forget 2008's House of the Dead 2 and 3 Return. While this game is still available in arcades, that little return in the name makes it exclusive to the Wii. Yeah, okay, so don't try to get me on that one, alright? The Wii version is a beast of its own and an extreme fun to play in the comfort of your own home. This game is an absolute must play, especially the second one. Killing zombies, way smoother shooting than RE games, and you can also play with a friend. I don't want to be biased, but go play this game if you haven't. It's a timeless piece of art with silly boss battles and dialogue. If you want to boost your experience, you can get the rail shooter attachment to make your Wii remote a gun. Boom! How fun! While Sega has given us some questionable things, House of the Dead and the Wii's motion controls fit perfectly together like a puzzle. Later on, we would get House of the Dead Overkill, a spin-off released in 2009, containing a silly story and fun gameplay. It had a love-hate relationship with fans, given the vast difference from previous titles. Enough about rail shooting. Let's talk about a really obscure title named Calling. Calling was released in 2009 by developers Hudson Soft. This is one of the few games that has fully kept its Wii exclusivity. That is absolutely shocking. Not even PC. This is also one of the only T for teen rated games here too. The game's plot consists of kids basically being sent to another dimension, which is filled with ghosts and they must escape. Very short logline, but you get the gist. Now this game is pretty cool. Using your Wii remote as a cell phone, I think that's a pretty cool idea. You can still use your TV as speakers, but why do that if you want the full experience? There is an abundance of exploration in this game, and the motion controls serve as a way of defending yourself from ghosts. I really like the ambience and sound design. Sound design is one of the most important things in a horror game, so nailing that really helps out a bunch. This is like a cheap version of a Fatal Frame game released in North America. For the Wii, might I add. Maybe I shouldn't compare a Ghost game to Fatal Frame just because it has ghosts, but guess what? I'm gonna do it anyway. Wait, would it be even crazier if I compared it to Silent Hill 4?
What? Another dream. But it seems...
I mean, could y'all just be a little less obvious? The game doesn't have a lot of dialogue in it, and it's taken out and instead gives the player a read and click capability. You can only do so much for a T for teen game, but I can't lie, it's not that bad. And the graphics are decent too. I'll say it again, I do really think that the ambience saves this game. Of course, some of the ghost encounters are predictable and not scary, but just thinking that you're gonna get scared is enough to do it for the player. If the gameplay wasn't so repetitive down the line, this game could have been a classic. I'd say answer the phone for the first few calls. I honestly thought we were done with rail shooters, but I'm just finding out that 2009's Dead Space Extraction is also one. Originally a Wii exclusive, it got ported to the PS3 with the release of Dead Space 2. Wow, can you tell that the Wii really liked giving us original games that were actually just rail shooters? Ha! While this game might look like your average light gun game, this title does feature more of a story-sided game. This is an origin story, before the main character Isaac uncovered the horror that is Dead Space. A light gun game can only be so intense, given that you can't do the most important thing, stop and look around. This declines the scare factor. Far from entirety though. Necromorphs, the enemies, seemingly do their job of staying terrifying as you try to dismember their limbs. The gameplay isn't innovative, although it does do a lot of callbacks to the original Dead Space, with its environments, characters, weapons, and such. If you want a rail shooter that you actually have to pay attention to, then this one's for you. The next game sounds like a children's title, but fear not, it's just 2006's Escape from Bug Island. Quote unquote, the creepiest horror game for the Wii, which is what the back says. Don't get me wrong guys, bugs scare me, but these just look silly. The intro music is pretty good though, not gonna lie. Not even 1 minute in and the main character is picking up a bug with no gloves. So the plot is going on an island to learn about bugs, and of course you and your group get separated so you have to survive in the bug world. I guess the devs who are Spike wanted to save money, so they also decided to make the dialogue a read and click feature. Hey, it's better than hearing shitty voice acting every 10 seconds.
You know, if you keep staring like that, you're gonna go blind. What? I don't know what you're talking about.
There is a music track in this game that might make you want to end it all just because of how much they reuse it in its entirety. These are not no fucking bug last time I checked. Some of the enemies are striking too. The gameplay is wonky, the motion controls don't really give me anything but a damn headache. This game is questionable. When comparing this game to other titles, the graphics are pretty lackluster. Even SH3 looks better. The silly combat can't even help this game's case. At this point, I don't even know if I would really consider this a horror game. I can appreciate its silly, goofy idea. Like almost all horror games, if you don't take one as seriously, you'll probably enjoy it. Look on the bright side. If you play this game, you'll probably be the only one in your friend group who's played it and can talk about something new for once. The final entry in this list is another Wii exclusive, Ju-On: The Grudge, Haunted House Simulator. The Grudge is a really popular series with many movies coming out in Japan and North America. Ju-On for Wii would be released in 2009. Man, 2009 wasn't playing any games when it came to horror on Wii. And what do you know? This game did not do that well, with a lot of mixed reviews being issued. For starters, the game only requires you to use one controller and no nunchuck, which means your only source of movement is with one button. That automatically means that the Wii controls, turning one way or the other is gonna take a while. A game like this probably would have been better on PC or PS3. Ju-On has its moments trying to recreate a haunted house simulator, which builds up that tension but fails to do so. Ju-On walked so a game like Outlast could run. If the scares felt more authentic in this game, I think it could have saved it. Even better, if the scares were randomized, that would have been super cool. This game practically gives you a heads up for any jump scares, almost like you're in a haunted house and you hear the screams in front of you. I do love the fact that your only light source is a flashlight though. There are silly QTEs in this game that are supposed to make the game fun or scary. I don't know, that's really up to the player, I guess. What I don't like is having to restart the level when you die. Don't die, guys. You'll regret it. Ah! Did that scare you? This game had a lot of potential to do better, with creepy maze corridors and your flashlights relying on batteries. This game could have been great with more enemies and some tweaks to the gameplay. Alas, Outlast answers our questions. But the main question lies, have you guys played any of these games? Or will they continue to be forgotten forever?